especially to our Mayor Stephen Phillip of Jersey City and Director Stacey Flanagan for supporting and implementing the Peaceful Families Program here in Jersey City. I also want to thank everyone who's here today, especially the panelists. But before I begin, I just want to introduce really quickly who the panelists are, so everybody knows who will be speaking about the program. I want to first say thank you so much to Paul Bellon Boyer, who is Jersey City's health officer here, who's taking time out of his busy schedule to be with us today. Unfortunately, our program manager, Antonia Costello, wasn't able to be here, so he's here in place of her. But we're lucky to have him because he was the former director of the Division of Injury Prevention, so he knows his division very well. And prior to taking that position, he developed and managed the Peaceful Families Program for a Healthier JC between 2019 and 2022 and still facilitates a women's group in that program. The success of this program helped bring Paul to be a founding member of the National Network of Abuse Intervention Programs, where he chairs the Strategic Development Committee. So thank you, Paul, for being here today. Our next panelist is Andrew Abrams. He's our Chief Public Defender here in Jersey City. He's a third-generation criminal defense attorney with his law office, Abrams and Wofsy, located in Jersey City. He has been practicing law for more than 30 years, and in addition to his private practice, Mr. Abrams was appointed to serve as the Chief Public Defender for the Jersey City Municipal Court back in January 2002, and he has proudly served in that capacity for about 23 years. As part of his role as the city's Chief Public Defender, he oversees 12 other public defenders where they are all assigned to assist the needs of indigent defendants, and he works regularly with Judge Austin in both her domestic violence and mental health court sessions. Thank you, Mr. Abrams, for being here today. In addition, we have Mr. Frank Morris, who is an ordained Baptist minister and advocate against violence toward women. He facilitates the Peaceful Families Program and is trained with the New Jersey Coalition of Battered Women and A Call to Men. He holds postgraduate degrees in biblical counseling and a doctorate in philosophy. Morris has received the 2016 Above and Beyond Award from the Women Rising organization and the 2017 UGIMA Award from the Harambe Social Services, Inc. He authored Women, Why Are You Weeping? Examining the church's response to domestic violence, and is dedicated to supporting victims as an advocate, counselor, and educator. And lastly, we have one of our graduates of the Peaceful Family Program who is here today with us, Rashid Miga, who's a Jersey City resident and former student who has successfully completed the Peaceful Families Program and will be providing his thoughts and feedback as well today. So thank you all the panelists for being here. I appreciate it. And what I'm going to do right now is just give a quick overview of what the Peaceful Families Program is all about. And then we will go into questions, and then we will have a Q&A. My understanding is toward the end of the program. So if you have any questions, please feel free to hold them until the end. And our panelists will be available to answer those questions for us. Next slide, please. So the Peaceful Families Intervention Program began and was launched back in December of 2020. And everybody wonders, why was it launched? Well, it was probably launched at the time, obviously to deal with domestic violence, but basically focused on the fact that during COVID, which was happening in 2020, domestic violence was actually at an all-time high. And so this was a direct response to deal with the problem of domestic violence in our community, which was a large increase in that time. And it was basically exacerbated more based on the fact that COVID was occurring and having people stay locked inside, obviously couldn't go outside and were sort of locked inside with their loved ones. And so while COVID didn't make an abuser, it exacerbated by giving the abuser more tools and more chances to control their victim. So that was one of the primary reasons why the Jersey City Health Department felt that this program was needed to be implemented. Next slide, please. And so what do we teach in this program? Just so everybody understands, this is not a therapy program. This is an educational program. It's a 27-week evidence-based program where students must complete it successfully in order to go back to the court systems and show that they completed successfully based on their court situations. And so the court system forwards their students toward us in order to basically guide them and aid them throughout this program in order to assist them. So what we teach is we want to teach different topics in order to help the peaceful families concept. We teach topics such as cruelty versus respect. We teach another topic called River of Cruelty, integrity, honesty, and accountability, personal introspection, negotiation and fairness, creating trust and partnership, parenting with respect, sexual respect, guilt and shame, and different battering motives, such as entitlement-based, sadistic, and survival-based. Next slide. So what is the river of cruelty? If you could imagine, it's a great metaphor, right? Rivers are usually pretty rough waters. So how cruelty is passed from person to person and generation to generation is the question. How does that happen? It happens because when we're born, we're free to express ourselves freely and fiercely without any reservation. Whether we're hungry, sick, tired, lonely, afraid, or sad, or glad, we're free to communicate what we feel, what we want, and what we need. But as we grow up, our freedom starts to express ourselves starts slowly be taken away from us. We start to be told and taught different things that basically takes away that freedom. We're being told, don't be a crybaby, get over it. Be a big girl. Men don't cry. Girls should be pretty. Don't let people see you weak. Children should be seen and not heard. Why can't you be a nice girl? Be more like your sister or your brother. Next slide. And so we slowly learn to think that much of what we think and feel is not welcomed, right? It's not wanted. And while they never go away, we learn to hide and deny our feelings from the world. So slowly our freedom to express ourselves is taken away, and we start to deal with other acts of cruelty, which makes it worse. Anytime someone intentionally hurts us or makes us suffer on purpose, we have experienced cruelty. So likewise, if our interests are blatantly disregarded, we have experienced cruelty. Every time we experience a form of cruelty, intense emotions are activated in us, and they're always unpleasant. They're always learned behaviors which are passed down either from parent to parent or generation to generation. And so it's learned at no fault of one's own. Next slide. So how do we survive this rough water? How do we survive these rivers, right? We develop these defense systems, and our beliefs become rational for maintaining that river. Beliefs like the motor that runs our car. Our car doesn't go anywhere without a motor, and we rarely do anything with a belief driving the behavior. We rarely take time to consider whether our beliefs are helpful or are harmful in our lives. We're simply told that our beliefs that are true and that the river of cruelty continues then to flow inside of us. So getting out of that river is a difficult process. And so this particular program allows us to recognize and examine the beliefs and attitudes that we've clung on to for so long in order to slowly accept the possibility that some beliefs are no longer necessary and that our defense systems can begin to fade. So we learn to be less afraid of exploring. We can become less afraid of our feelings. And many people feel an exceptional relief, sometimes for the very first time as an adult, that they no longer have to hide their feelings, that this gives them a newfound freedom and path to a more peaceful family. Next slide. So some of the outcomes from this program are pretty successful. We're pretty proud of them. Since 2024, we are now running about 9 classes with 12 per diem facilitators. We're training 9 new per diem facilitators. We are running 6 men's classes, and just so everybody understands, each class is instructed by 2 instructors, a male instructor and a female instructor. We are running 3 women's classes, 1 men's Spanish group. We are planning now and implementing the new Spanish women's group for the spring. And we are excited because we are now planning our new Arabic speaking group as well. As everybody knows, Jersey City has a very big Arabic community. So we are now also presently assembling our orientation team. And so in order for us to begin the 27-week program, lots of students must go through an orientation period, basically where they are discussing the program in detail to let them know what the particular levels that they're going to be, what the particular levels of the curriculum they're going to be learning, what is the time frame that they are committed to, right, in order to make them understand that this is a commitment, it's a 27-week program that they must complete. And then we are also now training our new social work assessor, which we are proud of as well, where the social worker assessor will basically be in touch with these students and just kind of guide them through in the beginning process during the orientation period in order to really make them understand what the program is all about. Next slide. So since the beginning and the onset of this program, we have actually graduated about 230 people. So basically what that means is that 230 people who might have caused harm did not cause harm. So that's a really positive outcome. The 6-month program has taught the participants to deal with their behavior with under a 5% recidivism rate, which is an excellent, excellent rate. We're educating against domestic violence for a healthier JC. And we're excited because more and more students are coming toward this program and really completing this program and getting phenomenal results from it. Next slide. So at this point, we actually have about 224 men who have completed the program. 62 women have completed this program. And presently, right now, we are enrolling about 78 men and 24 women. About 66 men and 44 women are presently on the wait list, but out of that wait list, 25 men and about 15 women are now currently transitioning. So they're going through their orientation period, and they will be placed in classes so that they can continue the 27-week curriculum. So next slide. So what are some reasons for not completing this program? Some of the reasons may be based on some policies that we have. Students are not allowed to be absent more than 5 times, and they have to have really good reason for being absent. A lot of our instructors look closely at that, but they are always willing to work with the students based on the reasoning of why they're absent, and they are in touch with the court systems to notify them should this become a problem. Another reason might be that they might not be compliant with the homework assignments. Throughout this program, students are given homework. They're given assignments and tasks to complete, and they are expected to complete them. Otherwise, they cannot move on to the next level. Also, they must have completed presentations and a midterm and a final letter to exit the program successfully. So again, if any of these things are not completed, the instructors are in touch with the court system by offering an official letter kind of describing what is happening with the student so that we all are on the same page and we're understanding that we're trying to guide this student as best as possible. Next slide. So we asked students, what did you find most helpful from the classes once you completed the program? So these are some direct quotes from the students, and you'll see that a lot of them are positive results. So the first one is saying, I learned a lot about those words or attitudes that look simple, but could trigger a certain cruelty between people and create negative energy in the house. Having peace in the family should start by having peace with ourselves first. I always undermine the question my facilitator used to ask, about how do we feel, but I understood at the end that before you judge others, just start with yourself. How am I feeling? Another point that they've made is the power in reactions. Justifying cruelty is never acceptable. The imagery and understanding the river of cruelty. So they're always remembering these terms that they're learned, specifically the river of cruelty. They tend to use those terms in all of their responses. So we know that the program is working and is getting through to them. The class helped me focus on myself, practice self-healing, not to hurt others because you're hurting, controlling impulsivity and keeping your cool in distressful times. Next slide. What did you find most helpful from your classes are some questions that we've asked. Some of the things they said are, my facilitators are amazing in helping me find new ways to cope with my anger and finding new ways to express myself in a peaceful way, which leads to better understanding with my partner. Also, the participants' input on their personal experiences as well helped out as we all talk about ourselves and our past experiences to better understand the root of why or how we became the way we did. And I just want to point out that that's very important. The instructors in our classes also get really personal about their lives. So this is a very, very personal classroom. It's only a class that's filled with 12 to 14 students maximum because they want to maintain that personability. And so, you know, it's everyone is very warm and very open in everything that they're discussing. And some other points that they've made. I learned a lot about those words or attitudes that look simple, but could trigger a certain cruelty between people and create negative energy in the house. Having peace in the family should start by having peace within ourselves first. Intuitive and good psychological guidance without coercion, but with a stern guidance, with understanding, with compassion, and yet aware of individual and personal needs and reflections that help guide a person towards a better comprehension to deal with matter in a family environment and public atmosphere. Next slide. So what did you find least helpful, right? And we always want to get feedback from our students. So some of them might say, I found every aspect to be helpful, while others might have said, well, my busy schedule made it difficult to arrange class time, but I did it. And that's a really important point to make because, as I said before, we try to make students understand that this is a commitment. 27 weeks is a long time, and that we want to emphasize to them that it's really important to reach the end of this program. So that's an important point that person has made. Next slide. So what are some tools that you're using as a result of participating in the Peaceful Families? Again, they're remembering the terms, recognizing the river of cruelty when needed, recognizing your shadow message when needed, and recognizing your enlightened witness when needed. And I know that later on, Mr. Morris and I'm sure Paul Boyer will get a little bit more into those topics once we have the discussion, so they can discuss what those particular topics are about. What are tools that are using as a result of the Peaceful Families Program? They're recognizing their golden shadow message. They're communicating and setting healthy boundaries in a non-threatening way, considering their partner's interests. Next slide. And so again, what are some tools that you're using with your partners? Supporting my partner's dreams, sharing decision-making, making money, decisions with equal consideration. The biggest impact I could say is that it helped me interact better with my children, helping foreseeing their mistakes before it happens, prediction of negative energy, choosing the right words and the right attitudes toward themselves and others, understanding you can't change everyone, and keeping the focus on myself. Next slide. So is there anything you'd like to say about the program, right? We're asking for their feedback. And many of them say things like, it's a very positive, has helped me in many ways in my relationships. Peaceful Families helped me realize the moments that I'm in the river of cruelty and how to recognize my shadow message during certain situations. And again, thanking all of the counselors because everyone shares and they feel honored to learn from them. Next slide. I've been more at peace with myself. It had a big impact in my life. It's helped me learn a lot about myself and not to enter the river of cruelty. Saving my marriage made my relationship with my son better. So all of these results you see are extremely positive. Everybody has a different perspective on how it's helped them with their own personal families. And what are some challenges we've asked and they're experiencing, while they're in the program and out of the program? So some say one challenge I have is always trying to fix the things myself that I no longer do that. Some challenges include opening up about my past relationship issues, identifying issues that cause violence and how to minimize such issues leading to violence. Challenges I've experienced out of the program is not to match my negative energy. I recognize the river of cruelty. So I don't initiate, but I have to challenge and motivate myself not to engage in it at all and not casting blame on my partner. Next slide. So what are some challenges you experience, again, in and out of the program? Group days, right? When they have group and they're all discussing things together. Scheduling. Sometimes our students may have two jobs. They might have childcare issues. Sometimes they'll say things like, I still shut down, but my communication has gotten better. Every day is a new challenge. I take it a day at a time. Next slide, please. So what can we do to improve the program, right? We always want to make sure that this program is getting better and better. And so we have. One of the things that they're saying is that during the class discussions, they talk about some serious jewels, right? Some serious particular topics when they're dropped on the lesson should come to a pause, they're saying, so that they can think about it more and deeply discuss it more. Taking advantage of real life problems in that moment that the group provides a family that really needs each other. Making sure that we eliminate any disrespectful members before they cause disturbances. Sometimes that could happen. There might be a little bit of a conflict maybe between two people, but the instructors have a really good way of sort of calming it down and making sure that the class stays at peace. Nothing is perfect. Maybe giving more credit to the instructors for doing an awesome job. They deserve it. They're awesome instructors. Overall, I think the program and the facilitators are doing the best they can with the capacity, because healing and learning is a process and it's not a one-size-fits-all approach. Please continue to help and inspire. Some topics are deep. We should share more time on these topics, especially when everyone is sharing and giving their opinions. The program is great. We want to share, please share more professional literature. So they definitely always want to continue learning. They want to stay in touch with one another. Want to reach out to the instructors even after they graduate. My understanding is that they will always call the instructors just to let them know how they're doing. So great positive results from completing this program. Next slide. And so this is the list of our instructors, our facilitators, and we just want to thank all of them. Again, Stacy Flanagan, Director of Health and Human Services, Paul Bellon Boyer, our health officer here, who's also an instructor, Mrs. Tony Costello, who's our program manager, Anger Angel Carella, who is our program facilitator and also does the bilingual Spanish classes, Caroline Jauquez, who is our program facilitator and does Spanish classes as well, Mrs. Sandra Lopez, Mrs. Bertha Reels, Mr. Michael Moore, and of course, Jamie Sanabria, who's the administrative assistant who's been helping us with our program facilitation, as well as Ariana Rodriguez, who is our social caseworker as well. We want to thank all of them, as well as Mrs. Kelly Austin, the judge from the municipal court, Afia Kozier, who's another facilitator that we have, Mr. Levi Johnson, and Mr. Frank Morris, of course, who's here with us today, Mrs. Abir Gamal, Ahmed Shadid, and of course, Jacob Parr, who is our Senior Processing Systems program, who's been helping us with our data programming. We want to thank all of them for making this program successful. And I'm just going to now go back and start beginning the panel questions with all of our panels here today. Wonderful. Okay. So we're going to start today with some questions, and I'm going to actually start with Mr. Paul Bellon Boyer, who's our health officer and also an instructor here. And as I said before, he has been instrumental in implementing this program. He was actually the one that really started it all with Mrs. Tony Costello. And so I'm going to start with this particular question. As a facilitator, how do you feel about the digital age that we live in and offering an online platform such as Peaceful Family? Do you think that it can only be beneficial when educating people about domestic violence? Why so?
Well, thank you, Cynthia. And first of all, let me say that we started planning this program pre-COVID in 2019, and we're going to launch our first class in March of 2020. And then we got a little sidetracked by the pandemic. At that time, virtually no one in the world thought that online programming was a good idea. And then when we sort of dug out from under the worst of the initial blast of COVID, we found that the whole abuse intervention world had gone online and people had quickly changed their minds about that. I see well, I think most people agree that there's a certain quality to in-person work, which is really desirable, meaning in the same room. The reality is that online programming brings a lot of advantage too. It makes the program more accessible. It reduces absenteeism. It means that a 90-minute class is 90 minutes, not 2.5 hours for traffic and parking and whatever else. It means we can serve people who committed an offense in Jersey City but are not living in our jurisdiction. And again, it just makes things a lot more accessible and approachable. So I think that it's an equity issue because it makes it much easier for folks to participate. Anyone with a smartphone can get into a class. And in those few occasions where we had people without technology, we did actually invite them into the office to use our computers.
You actually answered my second question, as I was going to ask about whether it's an equitable issue or not, regarding students who may not have access to technology or who may not be technically savvy. So basically, you're saying that when that happens, you offer the opportunity for them to actually come in person?
We did that with only 2 individuals. I don't know that we've run into any others since almost everyone has a phone in their hand. The court also has other options. The prosecutor gives a series of recommendations about treatment or about ways that people can address their issue. We think ours is the best. And that's precisely why we make it accessible. And I'll mention one other point of accessibility, which is rare in this world, which is we have never charged a participant a dime to attend any of these classes. Most programs nationwide charge on a sliding scale, with the average fee being somewhere from $30 to $45 a class, which is pretty expensive when you add that on to attorney fees, court costs, and fines that might be associated with their charge.
Excellent. Thank you. I want to bring over some questions to Mr. Frank Morris, actually, who's also one of our online instructors, um, and connecting it to what Mr. Bellon Boyer just said. As an online instructor, how do you monitor or differentiate whether the students are just simply following instructions to complete a court-ordered program versus making genuine behavioral changes? As an instructor, how would you say you monitor that? You have to unmute yourself.
Okay, I found my voice. I well, one of the could you repeat the question again? Because I want to make sure that I'm clear what you're asking.
Sure. I was asking, as an online instructor, how do you monitor or differentiate whether the students are simply just following instructions to complete a court-ordered program versus making genuine behavioral changes? In other words, are they really intrigued and interested as they continue the program, or do you feel like they're just going through the motions? How do you differentiate when you have when students are entering your classroom?
Well, it's a progressive thing. I've really had no one come in and say, "I'm so glad to be here." And so what happens, usually we get the idea that I totally don't want to be involved in this program, and I'm just going along to get along. And I think from all the facilitators I know, the great gift is being approachable and sharing of your own experiences. And then gradually through the homework, through on in-class participation, there's a shift. There's just a shift, and you can visibly see it and measure it through the homework assignments. So, no one comes in eager to do it. That I have not experienced that, but it's a graduate. It's almost to the person that's involved. They engage in the homework. That's why homework is so important. It is so important because that's one of the ways we monitor. And then the the opening up of the facilitator. If I bear who I am, which is pretty horrible for most of my clients, I think I'm worse than my clients. But when they hear you share, they'll share, and that's pretty much how it's done.
Thank you for that. That's actually really positive to know. And so this is where I'm going to throw my question to Rashid, being that you were a completer, Rashid, based off what Mr. Morris is saying. Can you share your thoughts about what you've received from participating in Peaceful Families as a technology educational online tool? How do you feel about that?
Just the fact that it's online as opposed to going in person, it really eliminates a lot of excuses people would have. I know just from being on the side of the person who has to take the class that you're not always comfortable going in person because you think sometimes they're trying to trick me or if I don't do this, like they'll take me right then and there. So you have like the safety of being online, and being online
Mm.
you get to vibe with your class, like, and you can see the growth, just like Frank was saying, like you can see the growth, like it starts little by little. The homework assignments, when you get the questions, they really make you think. They're not just like simple questions. It's like a 5 minute assignment, but really you have to put some thought into it, and it unlocks like some things in your mind that you may not have been aware of. Like, you know what I mean? Like really the introspection part, I think is the biggest part because when you're going into something like this, you're always looking at the opposing side and what they're doing when you should start with yourself, which is what I learned. And that was like one of the biggest things that I learned. And I'm not sure if that answers your question, but I'll be happy to elaborate.
No,
Maybe
it
you go
actually
further.
does answer my question, definitely. So do you think that, so do you believe that online is an effective tool for anyone who's experiencing domestic violence disputes overall? Do you think that it's something that should continue?
Yes, absolutely. I think being online just makes it easier for everyone, and with it being easier, you know, it's people are more willing to do it. And just from my personal experience with my classmates, like the attendance was pretty good, and we were actually pretty excited to see each other week by week, and it was just tremendous growth.
That's excellent. Thank you so much, Rashid. That's a great point that you're making about everything.
Uh,
Cynthia, you're muted.
Paul, what do you think is the most challenging in terms of offering online programs here? What would you say is the biggest challenge as an instructor and as a student?
Um, well, the challenge is in the work itself. And I wanted to just touch on that last question a moment. We we nor anybody responsible can offer any guarantees about what people do when they leave our program, or for that matter, when they leave the group meeting. Um, what we can do is test whether or not they show that they're understanding the concepts in the class and giving evidence that they put them to work um, in their lives. If we had access to their partner or ex-partner, we'd know a lot more about how real that is. But we go on what they say in the class. And Rashid just gave an excellent example of our very first goal, which is to turn the participants' focus from somebody else, who made them do this, who did them wrong, the system's mistreating them, to an internal focus. We know that people have reasons for getting here. We know the system does not always treat people fairly, but by the same token, we also know that it's our responsibility to be accountable for our own actions. I get mad, but lots of people get mad and don't hit their partner or scream at them abusively. So the work itself is the biggest challenge. So for a facilitator, that means first of all doing our own work, so that we understand the path that Rashid and others like him are on, and then helping them to do the same. And so it requires to be light on our feet in the room, to be attentive to what people are presenting, but also thinking about how they might move to a better place in terms of their belief system and better management of their emotions. And that's one thing we work on a lot is recognizing and being able to appropriately express emotions. A lot of men have problems with that, and so do a lot of women. And I think as facilitators, we have to go through our own journey to make sure that we've walked the walk before we can talk the talk.
Yes, that is a great point. And I know Tony has told me this many times that facilitators have to get quite personal, when they're instructing their students. And I understand that dynamic. I think that's definitely needed for students to open up and instructors just to sort of get more involved and deeper into the curriculum for them to understand. So I do appreciate that. Um, Mr. Abrams, thank you so much for joining us today. And I have a question for you. Um, Aside from the feedback, in terms of like dealing with some of these students who go to court for domestic violence situations, um, what do you feel about online education programs in mitigating domestic violence behavior?
I think that, can everybody hear me? I'm sorry, I didn't do a sound
Yes.
check. Yes, good. Okay, hi, everybody. If you told me back in 2019 that I'd be part of a panel discussion with a bunch of Hollywood Squares boxes talking to people, nobody dreamed it was possible or thought that it had any real plausibility. Technology is advanced. It provides accessibility to people. I think, as Rashid said earlier, there were people before who might not have participated in programs because it was too difficult to get there and back. And there is so much value. There's no less value in this program today doing it online than if we were all meeting together. There may be a slight disconnect because it would be nice to see a person in person, but we are all in person here. And the same has to be said of the domestic violence counseling that's being done through Zoom, through this forum. So the feedback, and I know you said aside from the feedback, I'm seeing people coming into court and they're always asked to share their experience. And I have seen programs, whether it's drug court, whether it's other alternative track that allows people to participate. And a lot of times it used to be, oh, I got something out of it, it was good. The people were really nice. When the people come in after doing Peaceful Families, they share their experience with so much enthusiasm. They talk about what they learned. They have clearly found a way to break a cycle or a chain, a link that they were part of. And they see and express a brighter future that I don't think was possible without this program. So the feedback is enormously positive. But then after they speak in court, we'll talk to our clients because we're seeing them over and over in court. They're seen every 6 weeks or so. How are you doing? What level are you at? What have you completed? Have you done your 18-week assignment? How did that go? How are you feeling? And if there's any concerns, they're addressed in court. If they need to talk to us afterwards, and all the conversations I've had with each of the people who have participated have been across the board positive life-changing experiences. And to give you some sense, before these types of programs, before Judge Austin's dedication and Paul and Tony and the program that was created here, the vast majority of municipal court cases involving domestic violence, people would come in and the victim would show up. Either they wouldn't show up and the case was dismissed, or they would show up and they'd say, I don't want to proceed. And nobody asked any questions, and the case was just dismissed. It was almost like the pulse test or the breath test on a mirror. If you had a pulse or a breath and you wanted to dismiss, case was dismissed. We were doing nothing about dealing with the problem. And so to the rest of your question, recidivism was high. We would see the same people over and over again. Maybe you got past this one, but you're put right back into a situation. You haven't learned anything to cope better the next time around. And if the pandemic taught us anything, the outgrowth or the significant increase in two areas, predominantly domestic violence and mental health, were people living on top of people for such a long period in a closed environment, and maybe people weren't wired to deal with that. But we have seen such a spike in this type of behavior that these programs, one person at a time, are teaching that there are other ways to deal with impulses that come up, and they are taking recidivist activity down to, I think you had a slide, 5%. I'm not seeing the same people. And I have to tell you, I think maybe one time have I seen a public defender or a private client that participated and successfully graduated this program return to the courts with another domestic violence case. That is a tremendous credit to the program and its success. We're just not seeing it. So I don't know if I answered your question, but that's the different ways I'm seeing it.
No, that definitely answers my question for sure. And I think you make a really good point about the recidivism rate, especially students who go through our program. I know that recently there was a triple homicide situation that happened here in Jersey City. And I know when that situation occurred, Tony and I we wondered right away, like, did the student come through our program? We looked at our list. The student actually didn't go through our program. The student decided to go through a program that was a lot shorter. Not sure the name of the program, but my understanding was that it was a much less time period. I want to say maybe a 6-week program or something of that nature. And that was a really terrible situation. And I know that was one of the reasons why we felt even stronger that we wanted to focus more on how to make this program more accessible to everyone and be able to really make our processes a lot smoother. Paul, do you have something to say? You want to say?
I did. I just wanted to add on to that a little bit, which is one thing I'd love everyone to hear is we had to work hard with our court system to gain acceptance of this relatively long program. Nobody in the system wants to keep a case on the docket for an extra 6 months. And why can't you do something shorter? Well, the reason is because abusive habits acquired over a lifetime can't be turned off in a couple of minutes or 5 classes. And just as an anecdotal story, through this work, I met someone and have a friend, one of the first people in the U.S. to do this, works in L.A. And O.J. Simpson was referred to her program. Um, and because he came with his own set of privilege, he convinced the court to let him go with the short-term anger management program. And the guys in her group would say that if he had come to their program, to her program, we wouldn't have heard about him in the light that we now know him. And I just know that I've seen so many people make really big improvements in their life over time. 6 months is really the minimum. It's a lifetime work. Many states have a 52-week program or a more variable structure, but I just know that I can't change anything in a short period of time, at least nothing significant. So we shouldn't expect others to do that either.
Right. Mhm.
Rashid, you said you wanted to make a point.
Yes, thank you, Cynthia. I wanted to add, because you did ask about the technological aspect of it. So, if I can give you an example, it's like being sick and having a doctor come to you instead of like going to the hospital, or if you need like a mechanic repair, like the mechanic comes to you instead of you going. Like it's really way more efficient than the way we're used to. So I just wanted to add that.
Absolutely. And what I was going to say to Paul's point as well is that this is a process, right? It's not something that can be fixed overnight. And I do believe that it is a lifetime of work. I think all of us, right? We all want to always improve ourselves and our behaviors. I know many instructors who run this program have told me that this has helped even their own personal relationships and family situations at home as well. Frank, you wanted to say something?
Yes. One of the things that was phenomenal to me, I had in my class a gentleman. The crimes were committed in Jersey City, and in the early stages, we had a very long waiting list. So I had a participant in Florida. I had one in Los Angeles. I even had one in Lebanon and one in India. I don't know how that worked out, but they were eager and happy to be able to join the group because the group takes on a one of the things I tell I do the men, I deal with the men, and at the outset, without fail, I explain what I know to be true for me and for most men, is that as men, we're socialized to believe that we can't um, express emotion. And I constantly say, except anger. And so this kind of bond grows where we start feeling free to do some introspection and share with the others. And so these guys really felt like, hey, I got to go to Lebanon. There's no problem. Just go to Zoom, and boom, they're there. And to me, that spoke volumes. I mean, the distance we didn't even realize where they were half the time. So that technologically, that was like amazing. Yeah.
You were able to get people right from all different directions all at once, which I think is a really
Yeah.
important note to make about technology and how useful it is. And to Paul's point earlier today about everyone having a cell phone, right? So many people have access to cell phones. You can pretty much access anything from your phone these days. And so I think the accessibility part is extremely important in helping mitigate
And
domestic violence.
one
Yeah.
other thing, Cynthia, on the negative side, one of the things that I found um, is it's a little difficult to stand in front of a phone for an hour and a half. So we have rules in the program about being on screen and, being in a quiet environment. So those are where some of the technical difficulties come in because I'm doing it on the laptop or on the desktop, but to have your phone and to be sitting there, that's the only, I don't know what we could ever do about that, but, just to add to, some of the challenges that do come up, keeping them adhering to the principles, the rules of the program, because it's that little small phone. So, but that's not bad.
Yeah, that's not a bad thing. I actually was going to ask about that. What is the negative side you think to offering a program like this online? So I know technology can sometimes be challenging, as we all experience that every once in a while.
Mhm.
What do you think, Paul, about that? Do you think that there is a negative side to doing things online? Is there anything negative besides the fact that, that you could run into some technology issues?
Well, there are some aspects of managing the group which are a little harder. I mean, in an in-person class, you don't have to have a group rule that people have to wear clothes. To take a somewhat silly example, but a real one, um, uh, it's also a little harder as a facilitator to keep track of the people in the Hollywood Squares boxes. Andy, I personally am going to think of you as Paul Lind from here on out. But uh, but that's a small thing, and that's our job. The one thing is, I think the conventional wisdom is that a Zoom room or an online meeting needs to be a little smaller than an in-person group, precisely for that reason, to facilitate the engagement, which is the personal engagement, which is a little harder to get through the electronic medium than if we were all sitting in the same room.
Mhm.
Yes, Andy, go ahead.
I would say this, and I'll take Paul for the block. I'm sorry, another Hollywood Squares joke. I have had clients tell me that the format is very helpful because in the group setting, they don't feel nervous and yet they feel they're not alone. So one-on-one counseling, you talk about your problems. Not everybody works well in a group setting. Some get more quiet, but I've had different clients tell me they were very appreciative of seeing other people's faces and knowing, okay, I'm not just a bad person. There are things I need to work on. They're learning from other people's stories, and they feel part of a group, and that has had very beneficial effects on the participants in the online setting. I also wanted to add that because of the rules that you had discussed earlier and Frank had just referred to in part, we're teaching responsibility and accountability as well, right? If you miss 5 sessions, you're out. You could do 16 sessions and then hit a point where you're not participating, you're out. And then your court case is still there and you have to deal with the consequences. So there's a carrot that's dangling, and the carrot has nutrition, but we want people to do this because they're invested, not because they have to. And again, the same with if you sign on late, my understanding is a certain number of times, you're out. This is a privilege. It's not an entitlement. We're saying to people, we're going to give you an opportunity to participate in a life-changing class that's going to show you that there's more out there than you thought before, teach you coping mechanisms, teach you that maybe you came from something, but you can be better than that. And if you participate and you throw yourself into this, there is so much good that can come out of it. But if you slack off or you don't show up, you're going to lose your spot in line or in that class. And so responsibility and accountability when it comes to life and the law are ultimately two more lessons that we're fostering in the people participating in the program, I think.
Great.
Great point that you make. Absolutely.
Andy, just to pick up on that, we view that, the legal system is society's mechanism of accountability for an offense against not only the person, but also against the public safety. Our job is self-accountability. And if we help a participant become accountable for their own actions, their own thoughts, and also their own healing, that's a big win for us. And we feel pretty confident that they're better equipped to deal with the things which come along in life.
Mhm.
Yes, and to that point, I also want to bring up the fact that, especially right now in this day and age with ICE and the immigration issue happening, What are your thoughts on that in terms of the program and, promoting family and togetherness, in terms of cases that are related to domestic violence situations? And this can go to any of the instructors or anyone here on the panel. You want to speak on that?
I would just say, and it's not specifically about ICE, one of the biggest hurdles that I've experienced is that participants want to know, are you here for me or are you working with Mr. Abrams? Okay. They immediately say, okay. And I've got to convince them that, yes, you do have a responsibility to the court. That's how you got here. And I'm always telling, oh, Lord. Uh, what's the judge's name? Boy, that's terrible.
Austin.
Judge
I
Austin.
don't know how I forgot her name. Anyhow, I'm always selling or promoting her to the guys to let them get an idea of the heart of this woman who merely, her only responsibility would be to pound the gavel for whatever the situation and so forth and so on. So one of the hurdles for, and I know Rashid can it comes right out. One of the first things, like, I'll talk, but I don't want to say too much because, and so we have to convince them that, you're a referral to us. Our concern is that you complete the program, that you deal with your issues, and process this, what we're teaching. And if we can get there, because we have many, I call them matlocks. I'm always telling the class, stop. We don't need matlock in here. Don't defend everything you say and do. And there is that barrier, but again, once we break that and let them know, yes, you do have a responsibility to the courts, but here, we're here to help you, And so the ICE thing for me has not become a specific problem, but it's the same type of thing. They're trying to see, what's the what is our ultimate goal? Can we develop a trust here outside of the system?
100%. I was just going to say trust is obviously the biggest, the biggest obstacle, right? Especially with the situation of the immigration issue happening now and how lots of cases are coming from that. What does Andy, I think you wanted to say something?
Well, I did, and then Frank got me going in a different direction, but I'll go back first. I just attended a meeting at the Superior Court with the Chief Judge and the ICE issues and the fact that ICE is setting up in the courthouse and it's like shooting fish in a barrel. You've got people coming in and people scared to death. They are associating bad things with the court system. They are associating that if I show up for my court date and I've been charged with domestic violence or gun violence or robbery, something, I'm going to get picked off and I may never get home to see my wife and kids again before they've been adjudicated, while they're still presumed innocent. Okay. And ICE is picking people up and everything is changing so fast that I'm not, even after 30 years of practice, I'm seeing things I've never seen before. So if a person has a choice, first thing, participating in an online class is terrific because there's a certain safety to it, right? As Rashid said, you're home, you're not worried, okay? Second part of that is we are reshaping through programs like this, and to go back to what Frank was talking about and Paul mentioned, a level of trust and a perception of the court's role in the proceedings, right? We have Judge Austin, who is truly wonderful. And she has a saying, court five, is her courtroom is court five saves lives. It does. It does. It's a privilege and a pleasure to serve as her public defender on her mental health and domestic violence days, because you see that we are effectuating positive change. But the people who come in, and these are packed courtrooms, when so many courtrooms throughout the state, municipal, are still remote, where you'll get a couple people, we have packed courtrooms, and everybody in there looks to their left, looks to their right. They know, okay, I'm in the same situation or similar situation. There's no stigma here. No one is judging them. The judge brings them up. We screen the cases. Some people saw on their girlfriend's phone that she was talking to an old boyfriend and they mushed their face. It should never happen, but do they need 27 weeks in a program like this? Maybe not. So there is some degree of what's best you in terms of using our resources. There are people you can read the charges and you know that there's an underlying issue here. You look at the body worn cameras, you talk there's more of a concern that's even being expressed. We steer them towards a class that's going to change their lives. It's going to keep them from coming back. And so we're acting not just as a screening mechanism tool, which is important, right? But we're also acting as a place of you don't have to be worried or nervous to come here. We're more concerned with restorative justice than we are in punitive justice. If you do this, we're going to help you. The court system is not just a penalizing entity. It can be, but if you come and you care and you try, we're going to be partners in an endeavor to see you come out the other side better than when you came in. And I think that people hear this in the street and they know this, and they're getting behind the program or getting involved in the program because they recognize all the positive that it brings. And that is a reshaping, again, as you had asked, Cynthia, from I don't want to go to court because only bad things happen. And now you throw in the immigration aspect to I'm looking forward to going to court to letting my judge know my judge has an interest in my well-being and my prosecutor's not going to hurt me. They know I'm doing well. And the public defender and the other people in the courtroom, it's a place where you don't have to be scared to show up. And it's a very different branding and reshaping of the public's perception and the role that the court plays in the public's life.
Mhm.
Great points to make. Thank you so much for that. And I want to ask then, based off of what you just said, and this goes to everyone. So what does the future look like for technology and domestic violence? Do you think that this is the key? This is something that maybe should be implemented more regarding court systems and working with domestic violence cases across the board? Should we continue to be on this path?
Well, if you go nationally, it depends because some states have specific standards about how this work must be done. I think there has been a movement back to in-person work, but longstanding programs that were once in person, like Emerge in Boston, have stayed 100% online. We've never had an in-person class. In fact, I've only taught one in-person group in my whole life, and that was when I was visiting some of our trainers in Kansas and lent a hand to cover an absence. I think the future is really that there's a mixture, and hopefully these are whatever makes sense in your setting. The same way that Andy describes it, we've been fortunate here because once we got rolling, we had a good working understanding between judge, prosecutor, public defender, and our program that we shared a common goal, which is not having these folks come back with another charge, not just because they're getting better at evading them, but because they've made the kind of changes that helps them have a peaceful family.
Yep.
Thank you so
And,
much.
I'm
Yes,
sorry
go
to
ahead,
cut you off,
Rashid. Yeah,
Cynthia.
go ahead.
If I could add, I was just
Absolutely.
want to say like this experience has been the first time because I mean I've been in trouble with the law before as if it's speeding tickets or little petty things like that. But I could say this is the first time that I feel like the court was working with us and like they said had our best interests at heart because we're learning things. You know, we go to school, you learn how to do math, you learn how to read, but nobody teaches you how to deal with your emotions. And we all like every human being has emotions, so.
That's
I think that
No, and it's interesting. I was just actually going to ask you that. What has been your biggest takeaway from this program? And do you believe that this program has made you a better person, has actually really improved your life on a day-to-day basis? What do you have to say to that?
100%. I think about like the terms, you know, rivers of cruelty, the shadow message, the enlightening witness. Like I think about those things all the time, and it's helped me to be able to process my thoughts a little more instead of going straight to reacting. You know, it's helped me take that time to avoid a worse situation because there's been instances since I've graduated that you know the old me would have snapped at, and I would have felt right for snapping at it. But after what I've learned, to just to take the moment to introspect and really think, and like why am I getting this upset over this? You know what I mean? It's not something that should jeopardize my safety, your safety, anyone else's safety. So definitely, I took that with me from the class, and it's definitely helped me like on my mission of self mastery for sure.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate the fact that you got so much out of this program, and I really I'm appreciative of you being here today and giving your thoughts about it. And I know,
Thank you.
Latha, you had said that we need to leave at least 20 minutes for Q&A. Did you want to? I don't know if anybody else has. I don't know if anyone's putting any
There is
questions.
a question from one of the attendees. Um, as facilitators, do you have situations where you have faced a personal threat within this trust and support-based relationship you need to establish with participants? If so, how do you deal with it? This is from Sanjana Kashyap, who is one of the attendees in the program.
Well,
I can answer that. Because I had one incident um, where someone came into the program and was adamant that they would be a disruptor in the program. And it persisted for a couple of classes. And for a while, I just let them sit. I didn't want to stir the pot. I would try to, because I had 10 other people to deal with. But ultimately, as the disruption and threats continue, I just got in contact with the individual and advised them that this is not working, and that you volunteered to come in, and so if I've saved you a lot of trouble and time, because in the track that you're going on, you will not complete the program. So it might be perhaps better for you to go back to the court and do what you and it was so weird. He said, the guy says, I accept that. I accept that. I said, I just don't want you to stay here 6 months, and because you're not gonna make it out, based on the behavior. And interestingly, they thought they were here for another case. It was so, whatever. I mean, he had so many charges, different. He wasn't even clear why he was in the class. So yeah, on an individual basis, you have to deal with it. I don't know if others have received threats, but it was just a thing of intimidation, and that's going to happen. So that's the best I can offer with that.
in terms of personal threats, I'll just say no. Um, I know, and I know a lot of people who do this work nationally and have done it for a lot longer than we have. And I really only know of two people who've described actual physical threats from participants. I know a couple of people who faced harassing lawsuits or legal action. But the real thing that we do experience on a regular basis, and it's less than you might think, but yeah, people who've learned to use abusive behavior, turn to it. So they use it in our groups as well. And
Mm-hmm.
and that's, while it's not okay, it's certainly expected, and it's our job and the group's job to, uh, um, to call them into the work, to help them to help them and others in the group see it as abuse. Oftentimes, the other group members will be happy to point it out, and that's one of the reasons we know we have a functioning group, when people will call each other on their stuff.
Right.
And then, but again, if somebody's angry at me for something, maybe they've got a reason, and if they do, I'll own up and say I'm sorry, and here's how I understand the problem, and what can I do better. But usually it's the same matter of turning them to themselves. So, what happened that got you upset? Oh, so what were you feeling when that happened? Could you name your feeling? Mad, sad, glad, or afraid? What's that feeling mostly about? Is this sounding familiar, Rashid? Yeah, because this is
Yeah, yeah, 100%. I was just gonna add that that does happen in class. You know, like people aren't always on the same page with the instructor. I know Frank. If I remember well, I think it was Derek Rose, or we call him Derek Rose, but Jaquan. I think
Mm-hmm.
one day he was having a real bad day, and you guys kind of went back and forth a little bit. But by the end of the class, you guys came around full circle. You know what I mean? And that was like a live demonstration of how to deal with your emotions. You know what I mean? So in the instances that does happen in class, those are like live demonstrations of how to handle those conflicts. So I think that helps for sure too. I'm sorry, Paul, to cut you off. You go ahead.
no, that's
Yes,
that's
thank
exactly
you.
right.
Yeah, no, I think thank you, Sanjana, for a great question. And she's responded that great to know, very insightful to hear all your perspectives. But most of all, Rashid's, thank you. We could
Thank
take
you.
one more question if anybody else has, or Cynthia, if you want to wrap up, and any last thoughts from anybody who's attending.
Yeah, I mean, I think my last question really was going to be, in general, the program is great, and so I wonder, is there ever any pushback, I think, from therapists or licensed psychiatrists or people in the mental health field toward programs like this? I always wondered, is there any negative feedback from them regarding programs like this? Have you guys ever have any of you ever experienced anybody giving you any pushback about it? And my second part of that question is, do you think a program like this should be taught in universities specifically as like a separate designed program in the psychology field?
Well, so the two questions. First of all, we're not really on the radar of most of the people practicing who see people who, when somebody walks into a therapist's office, they bring in a specific problem. Um, I think that most therapists are not really well equipped to deal with domestic violence because, well, I'm trained as a psychoanalyst, but that was not part of my training. I didn't know much about the dynamics of domestic violence and the importance of really just being direct and honest in a way that many therapeutic models are not, right? Yeah, therapists do a lot of listening, and we listen a lot too, but we also do a lot of direct naming and say, well, so how tell me how it is that you see that as not abusive, or um, so I don't know that the well, I'll say this absolutely, just like therapy, I don't think that can be taught in school. This can't be taught in school. We can have classes which give us the framework for understanding the work, but you learn everything from the work itself. I would be nowhere at all. We would have been in sorry shape had we launched the program before COVID, because once COVID occurred, I had access to the best in the world, and was shameless about learning from them. That means trainings online. That means collegial relationships. That means taking advantage of very generous offers to visit other groups and learn from them. And so to the it's cert this is certainly something that can be taught, but it can't be taught to everyone. We When we recruited facilitators, and this is one of the things we did really well compared to a lot of other programs, is we looked for a diverse group. And I don't mean diverse just in terms of mirroring the population of Jersey City, although we did okay on that. Um, but we turned to clergy, chaplains, some social workers, but not all social workers are equipped for this. Teachers. We looked for people that were really good at engaging others, but also had the critical skills, the critical and emotional skills to do the work. Um, so I'm not sure what this would look like in a classroom setting, unless it was directly tied to practice. Everybody learns in by doing the work, and many of the larger programs rely on interns, so as social workers or psychologists to do their practicum work. They rely on those as their next generation of facilitators because you have to teach domestic violence plus the group work um, at the to folks who don't generally come in prepared for it.
I believe
But
there's, oh, go ahead.
but if the new school has some interest in this, and New York City is one of the best places in the nation for a robust violence prevention effort, funded through the Fund for the City of New York. There's a wide variety of programs, and I think there might be room because every program that I know is always struggling for where are new facilitators. Not everybody stays in this work for a lifetime.
True.
We've been fortunate.
No, I mean, I will be, definitely, there was the New School Center for City of New York Affairs. The director was in the program, and she had messaged on the chat that she had to leave, Christian Morse. And I'm very happy to connect Cynthia with her to see if there are potential opportunities to collaborate. And they are more a research organization than any implementation or action. But as Stacy very well knows, the city office, the mayor's office is kind of lousy with their alumni. So happy to connect and see where to go. And if you would like also to promote an opportunity to get trained as facilitators, uh, that is another route that we can definitely. We have a lot of alumni from our programs in nonprofit and public policy programs who would be, really interested and committed to these kind of initiatives. And so we can, any way possible, New School in general, and personally myself, will be happy to facilitate any form of actual on-the-ground partnerships and collaborations.
And thank you, Latha. Yes. So as an alumni, I think programs like this, find like taking a look at the structure, the strategy, our implementation, the results, it, really aligns with the way the, I don't know if they're still teaching the program development, program management class or the, PIA initiative for students that like wanted to get involved and look at the work in a very specific way that might be interested, but also, the piece of the alumni that are leading major organizations across the city that are doing this domestic violence work that might want to get involved would be really wonderful. So.
Mm-hmm.
Thank
Absolutely.
you. I just wanted to mention there are two questions in the chat. I think Simi was asking, do government policies on public funding affect your program?
Yeah, and I just responded. As everyone knows, instead of passing a formal federal budget this year, Congress passed a continuing resolution, and a continuing resolution does not allow for congressional appropriations. That's the discretionary money that actually pays for this program. We originally paid for this program because of COVID at the start of COVID through ARP funds, and that was the American, restoration funding, then the CARES Act money, and then FEMA. And when all of those funds dried out, we said, now we have enough outcomes and good measurement to share this with our senators. And our senators both took this initiative and allocated $500,000 to it. So we are still working off of those funds. One of those congressional appropriation ends in August, the other in December. Our mayor is very committed to this, and yesterday, in fact, said we're moving money around to make sure that we can continue to pay for this work because this year, Senator Booker, as if we don't love him enough for everything else he's done, this month, allocated $800,000 for 2025 federal fiscal year, but because of the continuing resolution, his discretionary funds didn't get into the budget, but he has committed the same amount of money for federal fiscal year 2026. And we will see, how that rolls out in the near future. But our city's committed to this. We're looking through every kind of portal of funds, and some of that comes out of the funding that was not all officially used through COVID, which is kind of deemed ESG, this emergency services grant, along with CDBG, the community development block grant funds through HUD. And Cynthia and I are working with that team now to fund this program first before others, because it drives what we believe in, and things that I don't think we're allowed to say anymore, but like a real equity in our community, initiatives that are really bridging the gap for what people need to really, Andrew mentioned, like really being a part of the space where we're not here to hurt individuals that are seeking help. We're here to maintain sort of like a restorative justice approach to supporting the residents in our community that need us.
Yes, thank you so much for that. And yes, we are working diligently and looking for additional funding to continue this program. It's such an important program. We would definitely not want to have it go away based on just because of funding issues. So we are definitely trying our best to go ahead and seek that funding out. And there is another question. Sanjana is asking, are there a list of public resources you would recommend for learning or doing work in this space in our local context? I don't know if the facilitators would want to respond to this.
Or Paul, because he's been involved at the national level of this work.
And also what I want to offer is that if, the panel or one of you sends me the resources, I'm also happy to pass it on to the folks that registered and for the program. And in fact, I think this is such a incredible program. I'd probably share it with the entire mailing list we have.
Yes, and also our very own instructor here, Frank Morris. I know you're an author and you're a writer who focuses on the domestic violence. That would be another great resource. I was wondering if you wanted to just touch base on that as well.
Well, out of my own personal experience, I come out of domestic violence home. Lost my mother lost her life to domestic violence, and it's deep. And what I've just come to know, because as I went into ministry, I had to find a way to forgive my father for her death, and so I was able to, by God's grace, to delve into the both at the victim and the survivor, and someone who is in pursuit of theological understanding and teaching and all of that. So I was able to condense that and bring all that into a book that I think, and I'm very, very biased here, but I think it really touches a nerve for people who have a faith-based relationship with the church or the synagogue or the mosque, because there are things happening where people, all of our clients in some way or another, have a spiritual connection. And so a lot of hurt is happening in those houses of worship and with pastors, imams, etc. And it's a bigger deal than we like to understand. So I will put the book up if you're interested. Just a lot of information and resource in the book. Um, Not on the Times bestseller list, but maybe you can put it there. That's all I can say. So, but I think as a resource, I think it can be helpful. Uh,
Absolutely. No, I definitely think I think it's a great resource, which is why I mentioned it. I think it's always important to have all kinds of resources in order to assist people, um, um, guiding them, through this process. And so um, I appreciate that. I appreciate you talking about that. There is one more question, Alapa, if I will. This person had asked. Um, some people may be passive learners over time, especially with the 27 online session. Would it be a good idea if it was hybrid with at least 2 to 3 sessions in person to assess the level of commitment of the participants?
So we assess the level of participants, the commitment by how well they participate. So sometimes that happens. We're now starting to do that in the extended orientation process. The problem with the hybrid classes is that so many classes are composed of people who don't live locally to the place where their program serves. And there are many reasons for that. So um, if if I moved out of my home because there's a protective order, and I moved back to my family in the Bronx, or in Massachusetts, yeah, or in Tennessee, I'm not getting to any in-person classes here.
mm,
So the courts either have to adjust to a local treatment option or something else. I think there are some programs that do like a two-tier approach where they get people into an introductory class, and then when you've kind of shown that you're committed and you have made some progress with that, um, uh, you then move into the main class. But the hybrid really is dependent on if you have the hybrid, meaning a mix between in-person and online, is dependent on whether or not your people are local and can do it. The advantage to the online is that it fits people's schedules. We start our classes at 7 o'clock. Some people struggle to get there. I mean, our evening classes. That's why our program offers a variety of classes, so daytime classes, a Saturday class, et cetera, to make it hard for people to have a scheduling reason to not get to class.
mhm.
Going back to the question about resources, I'm going to put one in the chat right now. The national group that I work with is in the process of formation. I think within the next month, we will incorporate and also start a website. For the time being, the Battering Intervention Services Coalition of Michigan has evolved into a semi-national organization. So their website has probably the most robust set of resources around, and that's in the chat. We can get together a couple for you, Latha, and have those for reference. But the real resource that I found most useful is to talk to people who are doing the work. The living human documents, are the best source. And that includes the facilitators who've been doing the work, but also the people who've come through the program and have found the positive value in being able to make changes so that their lives are better. That makes everybody happy, and is the reason why I love this work so much.
Mhm.
All right. Thank you. Thank you very much. We have come to the end of the, event. And obviously, this is, I think, a program that we could discuss for many hours because there's so much here. And I think for me, it's such a reminder. I'm a kind of a technocrat at some level. So we get so caught up sometime with public policy in terms of evaluations and implementation and all of those issues in terms of outcomes and everything. But I think it's a real reminder that at the heart of any public policy is really the humanity of it, right? Like the heart is the most crucial to remember, that how who we serve and how we bring ourselves into creating a policy and implementing it, and how we understand and develop empathy for others, both in terms of the participants and their families and each other. I think it was an extraordinary initiative. I'm personally extremely moved, um, because I've been doing this for several years. Very few I actually have tears. And I think this is definitely one of them. There is such heart in the program, and there is such unanimity in what all you bring and how you bring yourself into this space, into this work is so obvious, depending on, regardless of which kind of perch you come from. And I think that's extraordinary. And then, of course, given how multicultural Jersey City is, and, I think given that you're probably one of the most multicultural spots on the planet, uh, doing this work in that kind of a complex environment is even more extraordinary. I think I'm extremely, absolutely gratified and grateful that I had this opportunity to listen to all of you, and that we have an opportunity to record this. And yes, Paul, absolutely, the program is diverse because our victims and offenders are diverse. I think that's a excellent reminder. And then in the diversity, we have like common humanity, like this this multi-generational violence, and what you call the river is so powerful as a metaphor, and how much we have, um, we can empower ourselves to change the trajectory, but also being understanding and compassionate to ourselves and the participants and our fellow human beings, in how this is so hard to also, it takes work to step out of the river and understand the river that we are in, and not get pulled back. So I think and I think I also love that you took the COVID challenge as an opportunity to scale. Absolutely, happy to support in any way that I can. And so thank you very much, panelists, for joining. And thank you, Stacy, for being always involved and committed to the new school. So much appreciated. And thank you, everybody, for attending. And we will, as I said, be circulating the recording, and any resources that you give. We will be, circulating to the people that registered to attend. So thank you, and be well. Have a nice afternoon, everybody.
Thank you so much. And thank
Thank
you all the
you.
panelists and everyone who joined. Thank you very much.
Thank you all. Thank you for having me. Have a good day.
Thanks,
You
everyone.
too.